What if I told you there was a woman in the early church who preached publicly, baptized herself, walked out of execution pits untouched, and was honored as equal to the apostles? And what if I then told you that her story was considered too dangerous to include it in the Bible? Today, we are bringing Thecla back into the room. If you've ever felt like your calling needed permission, this one is for you. Hello, if you're new, welcome. I'm Chris Rainwaters. I work at the thresholds, the liminal spaces where real life and real spirit meet. I teach a daily practice for sovereignty, and yes, I also guide people through the very practical thresholds of buying and selling homes. I'm so happy to have you here. So here's the plan for this one. I'm going to tell you the story of Thecla as it shows up in the 2nd century text called the Acts of Paul and Thecla. We'll ask why it wasn't canonized. Then we'll trace her hidden lineage through the desert mothers, medieval mystics, and martyrs. Finally, we're going to bring it all the way home with what Thecla means for your life and your authority right now. So quick note, Thecla's story is not in the Bible. It is apocryphal. So that means that it lived at the edges of official approval while living at the center of people's devotion. And the tension there is the whole point. Our tale begins in Iconium, which is modern-day Konya in Turkey. The story places us in the 1st century, so this is right alongside Paul the Apostle. But here's the important note. This text wasn't actually written then. The Acts of Paul and Thecla come from the 2nd century. This is a generation or two after Paul's lifetime. So what we're reading is an early Christian community's imagination of Paul's world, a story that they told to carry forward the truth that they were living, that women too could hear the call of Christ and become apostles. All right, so a young noblewoman named Thecla overhears Paul's preaching. She doesn't hear this from a church pew, but through the window of her home. She ends up sitting there for days, completely transfixed by this message of love, of devotion to Christ, resurrection, and a life set apart. She, at this point, is engaged to be married, and her family and culture have expectations for her future. But Thecla decides to break the script completely. She chooses discipleship. Her mother and fiance are pissed, and she is dragged before officials and sentenced to death. So the first attempt is that they try to burn her, but a storm rolls in and douses the flames. So then they throw her to hungry beasts, but the animals refuse to eat her. So she's free and she gets to travel to preach. Now, her message is simple: Christ, devotion, new life. The problem is that she's not waiting for a council to approve her. She's just living the call, thriving in the moment. So naturally, when a woman is thriving, that causes problems. And there's yet another trial. This time, it's a pool stocked with violent seals. Yes, is what's used as an execution method. Thecla declares, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I baptize myself," and throws herself into the water. So the waters start churning, and all of a sudden the seals all die, and she rises just completely unscathed. Pretty cool, right? At one part of her story, Paul himself becomes hesitant. After all, a woman traveling alone, preaching publicly, and baptizing herself could, draw dangerous attention to not just her, but to the whole movement in general. In some versions, he even tries to persuade her to step back for her own safety, but Thecla is resolute. She tells Paul that I am called to share the good news, and nothing, not even execution, will stop me. And then she proves it, right? She cuts her hair short and dresses like a man so she can move more freely, around, which, her murder has been attempted 3 times. Traveling incognito kind of seems like a smart move to me back then, but I digress. And she preaches openly, healing, teaching, and converting many on her own. The traditions here diverge on what happens next. So in one thread, she continues as a wandering evangelist, a female apostle walking the same roads as Paul. In another, she eventually withdraws to a cave near Seleucia, where she lives as a hermit well into her 90s. Pilgrims later come to that cave seeking healing and courage, and miracles are said to flow there for centuries. Okay, so that's the legend for the most part. It's not bland, definitely not patriarchally safe. It reads kind of like the book of Acts if Acts had given a woman the pen instead. The story of Thecla isn't just an adventure tale. It carries 4 powerful truths that still speak today. The first is female agency. Thecla doesn't just drift with the current of family, fiance, or culture. She makes a choice, not to rebel for rebellion's sake, but to align her life with the truth that is burning inside of her. That is agency. That is ownership. The second is spiritual sovereignty. Her self-baptism isn't casual. It's radical faith in action, a declaration that divine authority flows directly, not through the filters of men. She refuses to wait for permission to stand in what she already knows is holy. The third is divine protection. The miracles, the storm quenching the fire, the beasts refusing to eat her, the seals all dropping dead, they're not just random plot twists. In the language of hagiography, which I know I probably mispronounced that, whatever. Survival is itself a sign. The message is clear. When the path is true, heaven will hold it, even when the earth does not. The fourth is cultural friction. Thecla's devotion doesn't just inconvenience her household, it upends the whole order of what women were expected to be. And that's the point. Every true calling eventually collides with the structures that try to contain it. Her story names the cost of sovereignty when your spirit is already outrunning the culture around you. So whether you take the miracles literally or see them as spiritual drama, the core remains. Authority is not given by human hands. It flows from God alone, and no council or gatekeeper can block it. The New Testament didn't just fall from the sky as a finished table of contents. It was shaped over time with certain questions in mind. Was this text close to the apostles? Was it reliable history? Was it already being used widely in worship? The Acts of Paul and Thecla failed that test. It came from the 2nd century, a generation or two after Paul himself, and it read more like legend than history. Think of it the way we think of King Arthur. The settings are real, the figures may echo real people, but the story is written in the language of myth to communicate values, not dates and court records. That alone might have kept it out of the canon. But the real reason Thecla terrified the early church was not just timing, it was content. A woman who baptizes herself? A woman who preaches publicly? A woman who breaks free from family and state expectations and claims her own authority? Let me clutch my pearls. For bishops trying to force order, build hierarchy, and protect male-led control, Thecla was literal dynamite. Church fathers like Tertullian even admitted it. Women in his time were pointing to Thecla to justify teaching and baptizing. His solution? Condemn the text as a forgery, claim it was written by a rogue presbyter, and dismiss Thecla's authority. But suppression never erased her. It only proved how powerful she really was. When the church pushed Thecla's story aside, it didn't erase her, it only drove her deeper into the hearts of the people. And from there, her example kept surfacing again and again in new forms. In the 4th century, women began leaving cities and households behind to live in the deserts of Egypt and Syria. They became known as the Ammas, the desert mothers. Some lived in caves, some in small communities, all of them giving up the expectations of marriage and family for a life fully devoted to God. Like Thecla, they cut ties with what society demanded and carved a new space for themselves outside the structures of control. People traveled for miles to seek their wisdom. Their very lives proclaimed, "You don't need permission to live your calling." From North Africa comes the story of Perpetua and Felicity, one of the earliest martyr accounts we have. Perpetua was a noblewoman. Felicity was enslaved and pregnant when she was arrested. Both were told to renounce their faith. Their families pleaded, officials pressured, but like Thecla, they refused. Felicity gave birth in prison only days before her execution. Perpetua stood firm, telling her father, "I cannot be called anything other than what I am, a Christian." Together, they walked into the arena to face the beasts, calm, unshaken, sovereign. Their courage echoed Thecla's, women defying family and state, claiming authority in Christ, even at the cost of their lives. Centuries later in Europe, women like Hildegard of Bingen, Julian of Norwich, and Catherine of Siena rose up as voices of God in their own time. They wrote, preached, counseled, and challenged kings and popes. They didn't ask for permission. They declared that their visions and authority came directly from God. Just like Thecla, they were controversial. Just like Thecla, they were impossible to silence. Their writings still shape Christian thought today. And through it all, devotion to Thecla herself never really faded. Pilgrims traveled to her shrine in Cilicia, where her cave was said to heal the sick and embolden the fearful. In the Eastern Church, she was honored as equal to the apostles. Stories of her miracles traveled as far as Spain and Ethiopia. She became a patron saint of courage, a hidden apostle remembered wherever people needed proof that God's authority could move through anyone. Thecla's story may not have been canonized, but it was never forgotten. It lived underground in the deserts, in the arenas, in the visions of mystics, and in the footsteps of pilgrims. Every time the church tried to press her into the margins, her spirit re-emerged, showing up in women who refused to be silenced. Thecla's story has been misread and misunderstood for centuries, so let's clear a few things up. The first misunderstanding is that it's only about celibacy. I mean, how controlling women patriarchal can we get? But some people hear Thecla and think, oh, this is just another tale about renouncing marriage, as if holiness equals rejecting the body. And that is thinking way too small. Thecla is not preaching body hatred. She is preaching alignment. For her, that meant celibacy. For others, it might mean faithful partnership or a different form of devotion. The point is not the lifestyle choice, it's the sovereignty. Thecla's message is, God called me and I will shape my life in reply. The second misunderstanding is that self-baptism dismisses the sacraments. Of course, right? Church authority. So people worry that her act means that we can throw structure out the window. But Thecla is not a blog comment or a debate thread. She is a crisis moment. What happens when every door is shut to you? Not because you lack faith, but because you don't fit their structure. Her self-baptism is God saying, even here, you are mine. It honors the sacrament by refusing to let it be used as a weapon of exclusion. The third misunderstanding is that stories like this divide the church when the opposite is true. They round the story out. They remind us that Spirit speaks where the Spirit speaks. The best institutions make room for that. The worst pretend that they own it. Thecla's story doesn't fracture faith, it makes it whole again, reminding us that the call of God has always been bigger than our categories. Thecla's life is not about rejecting the world. It's about answering the call, whatever that looks like, in your body, in your life, and in your time. Thecla's story is not just ancient legend, it's a mirror. It asks you the same question that she answered. How will you shape your life in reply to the call already burning inside you? You do not need to wait to be perfect. You do not need to wait to be chosen by anyone else. You have already been chosen. What you need is honesty, devotion, and practice, something that holds you steady when the pressure rises. Thecla shows us 4 moves that make sovereignty real. The first one is listen deeply. She sat at the window for days, letting Paul's words sink in. Real transformation begins with listening long enough for truth to take root. The second is to make a clean choice. She didn't try to live 2 separate lives or stories at once. She broke the script. That clarity lowered the noise and freed her energy. The third is to expect resistance. Family, culture, fear. The pressure is not proof that you're wrong. It's proof that you're leaving orbit. Resistance means that you're moving. The fourth is build a container. Thecla didn't just drift. She traveled, she taught, she prayed. She lived a rhythm that kept her anchored in God. Sovereignty without structure burns out. Sovereignty with practice builds a life. This is why I teach a daily ritual. Without a container, your calling is just a spark in the wind. With a container, it becomes a steady flame. And like Thecla, your flame can't be extinguished. If sovereignty is calling, I have 3 ways to support you. First, my 3 free masterclasses. They will give you language and frameworks you can use today. The second is buried strength. This is a guided inner journey to find the strong, calm place inside yourself. It is also free. And third, if you're ready, join me in the Ritual of Light. You can take it as a standalone daily ritual if you just want the bones, or walk the full 44-day transformation journey with me if you want deep repatterning. It is practical, repeatable, and it honors the part of you that already knows how to meet God. All the links are in the description. Thecla's story was never erased. It was hidden in plain sight. It survived in the women and men who refused to trade their calling for approval. It survives in you every time you choose truth over reputation. Permission is nice, but calling is better. Thank you so much for watching. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of Thecla's courage do you most need in your own journey? Or if you had to step into your own Thecla moment, choosing your call over expectations, what would that look like for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's have this conversation. And if this story stirred something in you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that they don't need permission to live their calling. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, blessed be, may the road rise to meet you, and may the key in your hand unlock the door to your next better self.